that Kazakhstan set continues to serve as a model to the world, as we saw in March with the publication of President Nazarbayev's article entitled, "What Iran Can Learn from Kazakhstan." Also in March, the world watched as Presidents Obama, Nazarbayev, and Medvedev met at the nuclear summit in Seoul to celebrate 20 years of successful cooperation that has made the world a safer place to live. Our cooperation on nonproliferation not only continues to this day, it has expanded to include chemical and particularly biological weapons, with the U.S. funding the construction of a state-of-the-art central reference laboratory for dangerous pathogens that will provide a long-term, secure platform that will simultaneously ensure nonproliferation while providing Kazakhstani scientists working to protect human and animal health with a world-leading research environment. A complete review of ongoing U.S.-Kazakhstani bilateral efforts to improve nonproliferation, both here and around the world, would take much longer than the 10 minutes allotted for this address. So I will simply summarize by stating that our cooperation today is both broader and deeper than I think anyone here could have imagined 20 years ago. Nonproliferation, however, is just one of the many areas of intense cooperation between our countries. Within just a few months of Kazakhstan's independence, the U.S. Agency for International Development arrived to assist in the many challenges facing the nation, from healthcare to international finance. Now, 20 years later, a relationship that started as assistance has been transformed into true partnership, as shown by the highly successful Program for Economic Development that is being co-financed by USAID and the government of Kazakhstan. The Peace Corps also arrived in Kazakhstan shortly after independence, and the more than 1,000 volunteers who returned home to the United States continue to serve as unofficial goodwill ambassadors for Kazakhstan. The Peace Corps program in Kazakhstan has now drawn to a close, but I am sure that the countless thousands of Kazakhstani youth who benefited both from interaction with native English speakers and from the cultural exchange that remains the heart of the Peace Corps program will continue to use their knowledge and experience to help Kazakhstan and to help U.S.-Kazakhstani relations for decades to come. Since its independence, Kazakhstan has pursued macroeconomic reforms that have attracted substantial international investment, a crucial element of Kazakhstan's successful economic growth and the foundation of Kazakhstan's prosperity and stability. The minimal commercial activity that existed between our countries when Kazakhstan first emerged as independent has exploded. The United States is among Kazakhstan's largest sources of foreign direct investment and one of its largest trading partners. As Kazakhstan moves forward with its plans for WTO accession, a move that the United States has strongly supported, as well as with other fundamental reforms to further improve the investment climate, I have no doubt that investment and trade ties between our countries will deepen and expand even more in the future. Unlike many of the people who are gathered here today, I was not in Kazakhstan 20 years ago, and therefore lack the personal, long-term perspective that others, such as Director Nazarbayev, bring to this forum. As the current U.S. Ambassador to Kazakhstan, however, I hope I can provide some perspective on how far our relations have come over the past 20 years, and I'll use my own schedule as an example. In the past few weeks alone, I have watched as an American astronaut launched into space from Kazakhstan's Baikonur Cosmodrome, and have had the pleasure of taking part in Kazakhstan's first auction of high-quality cattle bred in Kazakhstan from stock imported from the USA. I have participated in wide-ranging discussions at our first U.S.-Kazakhstan Strategic Partner Dialogue meeting in Washington, D.C., and I have traveled to Kabul, Afghanistan to see firsthand the impacts of U.S.-Kazakhstani cooperation on regional peace and security. I attended the opening of the American Center for Contemporary Music in Almaty and met with members of Kazakhstan's growing community of civil society organizations. I observed the finals in a U.S.-sponsored business plan competition for high technology entrepreneurs, discussed weapons and technology control regimes with Minister Kazakhanov, and had two different conversations with Kazakhstani college students on the American presidential election process. While this partial list of activities does not reflect the entire breadth of our bilateral agenda, the fact that everything I've just listed has occurred in just the last few weeks does provide some insight into the breadth and intensity of the U.S.-Kazakhstani relationship today. Relations that many of you here today have helped forge. Secretary of State Clinton has characterized the importance of our relationship in a letter to President Nazarbayev, which I would like to read to you now. Dear Mr. President, I wish to send my warm regards to you and the people of Kazakhstan on the 20th anniversary of the first United States-Kazakhstan Presidential Summit. Your historic meeting with President George H.W. Bush in May 1992 set the foundation for our strategic partnership, a partnership underscored by your recent meeting with President Obama in Seoul. 20 years ago, Kazakhstan made a decision to give up its nuclear weapons. This bold step created a model for efforts around the world to eliminate nuclear materials that could fall into the wrong hands. Kazakhstani's leadership on non-proliferation continues to grow with its efforts to develop international fuel bank that will lessen the need for countries to pursue their own enrichment capabilities. The relationship between our two countries now extends beyond nuclear security to our cooperation on Afghanistan. Kazakhstan's support for the Northern Distribution Network and for the education of Afghan students critical to our joint efforts to assist Afghanistan and advance regional security. Your country's early market reforms led to the rapid development of Central Asia's strongest economy and attracted significant investment from major American companies. The economic partnership between our nations will continue to deepen as Kazakhstan moves closer to World Trade Organization accession and adheres to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development principles. As we look forward, the U.S. government is committed to strengthening our bilateral relations and working with your government to build a prosperous, stable, and democratic state that can serve as a model to the region and to the world as Kazakhstan takes an increasingly prominent role on the world stage. Sincerely yours, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Although he could not be here today to participate personally, former President George H.W. Bush, who launched with President Nazarbayev our solid partnership, has also written a letter in honor of this conference. I would like to read it to you now. Dear Mr. President, on this 20th anniversary of our first official meeting in Washington, D.C. in May of 1992, I write to congratulate you and the people of Kazakhstan on the accomplishments of your country, as well as the outstanding development of U.S.-Kazakhstan relations. Despite the uncertainty that still hung over newly independent Kazakhstan during the tumultuous period immediately following the dissolution of the former Soviet Union, your visit to Washington helped lay the groundwork for unique strategic partnership that continues to yield benefits not only for both our nations, but for the world as well. I also take this occasion to congratulate you and the people of Kazakhstan on 20 years of independence and to wish you success as your country continues to advance toward long-held goals in the areas of non-proliferation, democratization, economic development, and